Hello, and thank you for joining this month's webinar. Today we are going to be looking at Microsoft Forms. So, what are we going to be covering today? We're going to start with a little introduction into what Microsoft Forms is. Following that, we'll look at what licenses and availability Microsoft Forms has for those who are wanting to use it. We'll then go into a demo showing how Microsoft Forms works. Following that, we'll look at some of the benefits and common use cases for Microsoft Forms. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll finish with some best practice tips for when you're using Microsoft Forms. So, what exactly is Microsoft Forms? It is part of the Microsoft 365 suite and probably one of the more underutilized products included within Microsoft 365. Essentially, it is an online platform, a piece of software that enables you to create quizzes, polls, surveys, and forms to collect data. We often find that people try to use Microsoft Word or Excel to create forms and collect information, when actually Microsoft Forms is a much better option as it's a lot more user-friendly and specifically designed for this purpose. It is available on both the browser and on mobile device as well, and it is Copilot enabled. So it's probably not one of the most beneficial areas that Copilot has an impact on, but it can be useful. We won't be looking at that today because I know a lot of people still don't have Copilot, so we're just going to be focusing on Microsoft Forms and how that works itself. The quickest way to check if you have access to Microsoft Forms is to go to forms.microsoft.co.uk, log in with your Microsoft 365 account if not already logged in, and then you should be able to see whether or not you can access it. However, in terms of licensing, it is widely accessible to both business and education users, and most business users will have access to it because it is available from a business basic license, and then any license above that will also have access to Microsoft Forms. One of the great things about Microsoft Forms is that only the creator needs to have a license. So what that means is whoever creates the form needs the Microsoft Forms license, but then they are able to share that with users both internally and externally to complete the form, and they're able to do so even if they don't have the necessary license. So moving on to our demo now. This is the screen that you'll be presented with when you go into Microsoft Forms and click on creating a new form. And we are just going to focus on creating a form today rather than a quiz, but which there is some differences between the two. But once you go in, this is essentially a blank form. So the first thing that you'll need to do is you'll need to give your form a title. So for this demo, we are going to set up a very brief and simple new client form. So we enter our title at the top, and once we've done so, we click the Quick Start With button. Now, this button enables us to add questions to our form, and as you can see, there's a variety of types of questions. The first question is just going to be a really simple text question, and the first bit of information we need to gather in our new client form is the client name. Now, under each question, you'll see that there are a few different options. So as the text option, you have the option to select whether it's a long or a short answer. And for each question, you'll also be able to indicate whether or not the user is required to complete that question before they can submit the form. So we're then going to add a second text question. This one will be a long answer as it's the client address and requires a little bit more space. We'll again make that required, and then we'll move on to our third question. So for the third question, we're going to look at a different type of question and go for a choice question. Now, this is going to be asking the user, what is the type of company? And we're going to give them a few options to pick from. So we're going to ask them if it's education, healthcare, finance, or perhaps a charity. Now, at the bottom of the section for that question, you'll see there are a few more options as well. Now, we're going to switch this one to be a drop-down question. And once you switch it to a drop-down, that does mean the user's not able to select multiple answers. So if you do want them to be able to pick multiple choices for that question, you'll need to have it as a simple choice question and then turn that option on there. So for the next question, we're going to try again a different type of question, and we're going to look at a ranking one. So this is where the user has the option to rank the answers in terms of priority. So for this question, we're asking what services does the client need most urgently? And we're going to give them 5 options. So cybersecurity, consultancy, IT support, digital transformation, and hardware. Again, we're going to mark that question as required, so they need to complete it before they move on. Now, at this point, perhaps we've realized that we've missed a question and we're going to try and put it in. So we want to include the date of sign up, but rather than being the last question, we'd like that to move up. So you can use the arrows to really quickly and easily move the questions and reorder them so they appear how you would like them to. And that is essentially how simple Microsoft Forms is. Once you have created all of your questions, and as we can see there are a number of different options. We have file uploads, we have Likert scales, and we have net promoter scores. So there's a variety of types of questions that you can use. But once you have created all of your questions, you have a few style options. So you can change the layout of the form. Generally, you can just stick with the default one, and you can choose to have different backgrounds as well. Generally, there's a lot of Microsoft suggested images, but you can also add your own custom images as well, or just have some color gradients. You can also add background music if you feel that's appropriate. Once you've confirmed your style settings, you then go to the settings cog. And this is where you can define who is able to reply to your form. Now, this is really important because you want to ensure that the correct people are able to access and complete the survey. And you have 3 options. So you can select that anyone can respond, anyone within your organization can respond, or only specific people within your organization can respond. There are a number of other options. So you have a start date and end date and duration for completing the questionnaire, but most of these settings tend to relate more to quizzes, so they're not necessarily very relevant for creating a form. One option that you may want to do, though, is to indicate that you'd like to get an email notification for each response. So scroll down to the bottom, tick that box, and then add any users who you'd like to receive an email notification when the form is submitted. Once you've confirmed your settings, you can then go to collect responses. And you'll have the option again to change who can access it. And from there, the simplest option is to copy the link to the form. And then what we're going to do is we're going to quickly open a incognito window so that we can see what the form looks like to anyone who is trying to complete it. So we'll do a quick test run through the form. So starting with our client name, we're going to enter the information, then we're going to record using the date field when they signed up. And then you can see the difference between the long and the short answer text. There's a lot more space for the address to be input. Now, obviously, on a real new client form, you probably have quite a few more questions with different information required, but this is just a quick example. And here we can see the rating question, so they can select which services they need most urgently in order. And once they've completed the questions, they hit submit and they get a confirmation that they have submitted their form. Now, that was obviously a very basic run through of how Microsoft Forms work, and there is some additional functionality that can be useful. So as I mentioned, there is the ability to create some custom branding. So you can change the colors and add your company logos to ensure that the form aligns with your company branding. You can also create sections. So these are really useful if you're trying to break down a long form into more manageable chunks that make it a lot easier for your users to complete. Branching is a really powerful tool as well. It enables you to skip questions or ask additional questions based on the user's answers. Essentially, it makes it easier for users as they don't have to even see questions that they don't need to complete. So again, it really makes that user experience better and less confusing, because if they don't need to answer questions 6, 7, and 8 because they answered no to question 5, then they won't even see those questions. Finally, Microsoft Forms does also provide some general answer analysis. So it will try to analyze the submissions to your form and give you some basic information about what has been submitted through the form. So now we'll have a quick look about how you view your responses. So essentially, once you've got some responses, if you receive some emails saying you've had responses, you can go back into forms.microsoft.com, open the form, And then from there, you go to the View Responses button, and you'll be able to see how many responses you've had. And this is the general analysis that Microsoft Forms will do. It will show you the number of responses, and it will try to give you some analysis. Now, obviously, we've only got one submission on this form, so there's not much to look at. But you also have the ability to download those results into an Excel file, and that gives you the option to then import it elsewhere or manipulate that data further. So what are the benefits of using Microsoft Forms? The main benefit is that Microsoft Forms capture the data in a structured format, which is really essential for effective analysis and integration with other systems. Consistency. Microsoft Forms ensures that every respondent answers the same question, which helps to yield standardized and comparable data. Again, really good for moving that data elsewhere or manipulating it in another way. It also provides those real-time insights, so you are able to go into the back end of the form, review the analytics to get a sense of how the responses are going. If you're getting feedback on something, for example, you can get a live update and then make a decision based on that information. As well, you've got the data exports. So because the data is structured and consistent, you're able to export it to Excel and then do more with it. Now, Microsoft Forms really is just the beginning. Capturing the data in a form, in a structured format, is just the start of the process. And actually what you can then do with that data is more powerful in terms of time and cost savings. So once you've got that data in a structured format, you can potentially eliminate repetitive tasks. So there may be times when you're capturing data in a form and then manually having to re-enter it into another system. Once you've got that data in Microsoft Forms in a structured format, you could build some automated workflows that trigger actions based on form submissions, which reduces that need for the manual intervention. You have the seamless data connection, so it also links directly into Power Automate, which really helps to create those automations and save time. The speed and efficiency, so instant actions from form submissions can significantly enhance business processes and customer satisfaction. So whether that's an instant email to let somebody know that their form submission has been received and that it's being investigated, or whether it's more quickly being able to take action because you have the information, all of the information you need directly in front of you. Finally, there is also, you could create document generation from the form. So if you do need the output to be in a specific format, you could still use Microsoft Forms to make the input for the users more easy, and then still output the document in the same way at the end. So what are some real life use cases for Microsoft Forms? So we did obviously the demo on the new client onboarding. Once you've gathered all of the information that you need, whether that's being done by the client themselves, whether it's being done by an internal user, once that form is completed, it could trigger the company to be created within your CRM system and perhaps any contacts as well if you've gathered that information. Not only does that save time by removing the manual entry, but it also actually prevents any errors from that manual entry and saves time from having to correct those errors. Following that, you could generate specific documents that need to be sent to the client. Maybe you need to send your terms and conditions to them and request a signature. And you could also link that to a planner board. So if you have a number of tasks that need to be completed to onboard a client, you could link to a planner board and automatically generate those tasks based on the form completion. Another example is project tracking and management. So when a project is recorded in a new in the form, you could have a new SharePoint site, team, or channel within a team automatically generated and set up for that project. And that could go further and include specific folders and documents from templates that you need for that project. Issue tracking. So you could create a form to log issues. Once the issue is logged, it could be added to a SharePoint list that works as an issue tracker. It could send in email notifications to users who've completed the form, confirming their receipt, and then further workflows based on actions completed in the SharePoint list. So for example, if you need to gather more information, or once the issue has been resolved or denied, then that could send an email to update the user as well. Finally, a training request form is a really simple one. We have this ourselves. So you could set up a form where users could request training. Perhaps they are looking to do a specific course. So they would enter the information. So the course title, the cost, the date, and the reasons for completing the course. That could then trigger an approvals process. So all of the information that they submitted in the form goes to their manager. The manager gets a notification in Teams and via email that they've got a new approval, and they can then review that and select whether to approve or deny it. So the great thing is that all of those examples are actually use cases that we have built and implemented for clients based on Microsoft Forms, and they all find them really helpful and time-saving. So finally, we're just going to look at a few Microsoft Forms best practice tips. So when you are creating a Microsoft form, it's really important to know your audience. So identify your respondents and configure access settings accordingly, because you want to ensure that they are able to access and complete your form, and that will maximize the form effectiveness. Ensure that you're working to clarity and conciseness. So design the forms to be clear and as concise as possible. You really want to make sure that you're respecting your respondents' time and not asking them any unnecessary questions. Utilizing branching logic. It is very useful within Microsoft Forms and for users to be able to only answer the questions that they need to. So by implementing the branching logic, you assure that those respondents only see the relevant questions, and that enhances your data collection as well. And finally, using the branding tools. So it's good to use the Forms branding tools to customize the appearance, to create a professional look and feel, and ensure that it aligns with your company's branding. If you are interested in learning more, then please keep an eye out for any further webinars. We are holding them on a monthly basis. If you use the QR code that is on screen, that'll take you to the events page on our website, where you'll be able to sign up and register for our upcoming events. We do also offer bespoke training and consultancy. So if there's a specific requirement that you have, if you'd like some additional training on that or consultancy, and as well, we are also able to implement solutions. So if you have a specific forms and workflow solution that you're interested in investigating further, then please do get in touch. And finally, just as a quick reminder, we are holding our first in-person Copilot event next Tuesday. There still are a few spaces available if you're interested, and you can access the full details and register for that again by using the QR code at the bottom of the screen. So that is the end of the webinar. Thank you very much for attending. If you do find that you have any further questions, please feel free to send us an email to development@heliocentrics.co.uk.